Welcome back to another episode, a very exciting episode of Rob and Avis Ramble, and we have our second ever guest on this podcast. So we had been doing this thing kind of solo, yeah, and then we had a guest last time, and now we've got Giff on. So I'm really excited to have Giff on. So he wrote a book. For those of you who may not know Giff, he wrote this book right here, which is called The Way. Yeah, he's got his copy. Look, hey, you have a copy? That's
I
shocking.
do. I actually have a bunch. They
Sell
them to me
out wherever you go. Yeah. But anyways, he wrote this book, and I think there's a lot of great stuff in this book.
The Way of Men with Maids is
the Way of Men with Maids. Yeah, and Giff, this is your first book. Is that right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Very happy
how
to be
was
on.
that? I'm just curious. Kind of maybe a good place to start this conversation is. Maybe you just give a little background on. I know in the book you do give an intro, and for those who want to read it, they can kind of read the whole thing. But just kind of briefly, like what is the background and what kind of inspired you to write this book, and it's giving you a passion for having these kinds of conversations.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So The Way of Men with Maids, and then if you zoom in, it says forgotten Christian wisdom for becoming a man who wins at love. So you want to get a woman who looks at you like this lady's looking at her man. But so what inspired me to write this thing? Well, basically 8 years ago, I went on this kind of personal journey to like quit porn, get sex in my marriage, just my marriage and my life in a better place. And did that, a huge self-improvement effort. And in so doing, one of the things I ended up doing is coaching a lot of guys later on in the same process. It's kind of crazy how that works with new media, but I just put my thoughts out there in the world as I was doing this, led something local at my church, and then a sort of a thriving community around a course I wrote, basically taking people through the journey I had been on, sprung up. And I guess the core of it was helping men get sex in their marriage on track from, dead bedroom, low sex marriages, all that stuff. And so there were some local guys in my church, and I just sort of took them through the content just to show them what I was doing. We were really tight. They had sort of walked with me in some of the stuff. And one of the guys was the local youth group leader, and he watched all my content and he was like, Giff, my high school boys desperately need this stuff. They need 95% of everything you're seeing. They don't have it. They need it. And I was a little taken aback, right? It's like, this is about, this is set for guys in their 30s, 40s, fixing their dead bedrooms. But then again, the guys that I've coached and talked to about this stuff all said, man, why didn't I learn this stuff in high school? This stuff ought to be taught in high school, over and over, that ethos. So it was kind of on a lark, I need something geared towards high schoolers with all this. And I was like, a video course like this? Like, no. They're sick of video courses and Zoom calls and all that. The younger generation, I'd do better handing them an old fashioned book. So anyway, it was kind of crazy even then, this sort of spitballing concept, but we sat down and discussed kind of how I might reorganize it a bit. And I just couldn't stop the thought. And gosh, it seems like I wrote a book. So here it is.
Is that surprising to you to say that you're like, wow,
it's sold as of this point, it's sold over 900 copies, which is
nice.
Kind of amazing. And I've learned just how easy it is just how good Amazon is to self-publish authors. It's a new world. So
yeah. Not really at all what I want to talk about, but you are triggering me to ask a question now. So, how does this actually get printed? So does Amazon print this? Like you submit?
Yes. Okay. So you don't know. All right. It is sickeningly easy to, now I used to, at one point, my job fresh out of college, I graduated with a computer science degree, had a bit of an artistic bent to me. You can see some art books back here, but, technical degree, and I graduated right in the first .com bust, where it was like, no tech jobs all of a sudden, and I got a job doing magazine layout of all things. And
Oh,
so I
wow.
learned how to lay out, type, and all that stuff, so that aesthetic angle. And so the book, if I do say so myself, it actually looks really nice compared to your average, self-published book, right?
Yeah,
Um, it's,
it does. Yeah.
I mean, because I was trained how to do that, and I actually worked professionally how to do that, and so I know how to like lay out a PDF and lay out a cover and all that other stuff. And basically, what Amazon has, anybody can um, anyone can publish anything on Amazon, and they will print it for you on demand. Meaning they don't have to
Wow.
do a print run of like
Oh,
1,000 or 10,000 or anything like
okay.
that. It's just as they order it. And I actually experimented the first time I did it. It was within, I think, 50 hours. 50 hours from me sending the PDF, ordering the sample copy, and it in my hands.
Wow.
So that's
No way.
shipping and just printing on demand is wild and
Wow.
excellent quality. So I didn't mean to be an infomercial for Jeff Bezos. I never aspired to be that, but
I'm sure he
yeah,
appreciates it. Yeah.
I mean, my book costs $20, right? It costs at scale about $4 for them to print, and then
Okay.
whatever's left of that $16, they give me 60%. They take 40.
Okay.
Wow.
And it's like far better treatment. And I can order author copies if I wanted to have like an event or something. I can order author copies at cost, at
Oh, wow.
like
Okay.
huge numbers of them, and sell them for whatever the heck I want. So that is far more generous than a publisher would normally give an author. So I hear.
Wow.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm kind of like, yay, big multinational corporation gobbling up all the traditional publishers.
Yeah.
Yay.
They love it.
I'm on team big company, and yeah, because I'm a small
Yeah,
time
no,
author.
but it is amazing and how it just opens the world to people to receive information they wouldn't have otherwise received. I mean, the internet's a thing, but you're right. I mean, if people are kind of, maybe this is their preferred method of consuming information, and it sounds like they've made it pretty easy. So that's
Right. They absolutely have. In
that's
fact,
cool.
the Audible was harder. There were more persnickety, a more tricky process to go through getting those audio files in exactly the way they want it and adhering to all their standards and hoping
Which is
that
owned by Amazon, right? Audible.
yes, it is.
Yeah.
Though it was a different origin. So if I look at, the stats are on a different website or something versus like Kindle, the like ebook version, the Kindle version is lumped in with the Amazon one, but whatever.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess kind of on that note, I ordered your book, and I'm not a huge reader, right? So like, I'm just being honest, right? I did,
Well, I did the audiobook, man.
yeah, I sincerely made an effort to read it. I sat down. Actually, the first time I was out, I was actually camping by myself. I kind of do that from time to time for various reasons. And I broke the book out and I tried to read it, and I got like 10 pages into it and fell asleep. Not because the book was boring. I was tired. and but where I was going with that is I did get the audiobook also, and that is far easier for me and just the way I operate. So like, I'll go to the gym in the morning and throw my headphones in and just listen to it, and it's just an easier way for me to consume information. So just for people who might be wondering, like, it is available in both. You can get the paper copy you want. So I asked Avis, because in this leading up to this, you and I were talking maybe a month ago about potentially just getting together and having some conversation. And so I said to Avis, I said, hey, I'd really like it if you'd read the book, just so that we have some information, that you're a little bit familiar with what we're going to talk about here. And so she read the book, she did the reading part, and she read it in about 3 days, which I was shocked at. I don't read that fast, and I think she beat me with the audiobook even. So so I said to her, I said, hey, so this was like 2 days ago. I said, hey, just ahead of this, conversation with Giff, I said, would you mind? Like, I kind of jotted some notes down, a few notes, and just some thoughts I had. Maybe I thought we could kick around. And I asked Avis to do the same thing, and she came to me this morning with about 70 pages of stuff.
No.
And it was a lot though.
I bet it's.
And
I
was
bet
like,
I would
don't think,
find it riveting reading.
yeah. I said, I don't think
As the
Giff is
author.
going to have 7 hours to talk to us, but so maybe we can condense this down. So maybe a good kind of like segue into this conversation is I just want to say first off, like, I think there's way more stuff that we agree on than we don't, by far. I think you're doing really good work. I thank you for, what you're doing, and just the truth and motivation you're trying to speak into men's lives. I think that's great. I think it's a great need for that. If there's anything, you and I have had a few conversations back and forth on X, and my buddy Justin has jumped in there a few times.
Yep.
And we kind of had this thing going around about the need for sex.
Right.
And I think, I said this to Avis, I don't know, a couple of days ago, and I said, I think one of the things with Gift that I have maybe a little bit of trouble connecting with is I think you're a very like poetic speaker in the way that you speak. And I think for me, sometimes it's hard for me, like maybe we're saying the same thing and maybe we're not. And I think that's kind of where it's like, sometimes I just miss it. Cause it's like, I think I'm saying something and you've been like, no, it's like this. And I'm like, no, it's like this, but maybe we're saying the same thing. And I've thought that at times too. So I thought maybe we could just kind of kick that topic around, and then maybe we could dig into one of these 500 pages of stuff Avis wrote down. And,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, happy to do that. And, I mean, it's okay. It's okay to disagree, right?
Sure,
Like,
100%.
Yeah.
But it's really good to understand if you can. Right?
Yeah, 100%. So what would you say? I mean, I have kind of taken the position, just based on my own experience and observations, that, sex is very much a need for men, the same as food. I don't really see it as any different than that. And I, at times, have thought, okay, Giff kind of sees it that way, but other times I feel like you haven't seen it that way. So how would you describe it? I mean, what?
I would, I mean, need is a tricky word,
Sure.
right? And we can tease in why that is. But if I were to say, okay, what category would I put sex in? I would put it more in the category of like calling or destiny. So there in the and the difference there is in the categorization and ethos behind it, the sort of things, the posture that it unlocks in a man, and the way he relates to the world. You can go at sex better and thrive better if you don't, in my opinion, if you don't see it in the same way you would see like the need for food. So let's start off and assume. Let's start off by assuming we disagree.
Okay.
Now, let me tell you what I'm not saying when I say, guys, you don't need sex. What I'm not saying is that you shouldn't pursue sex with the fierceness of your drive and try to make it try to get yourself the most and the best sex you can. Within congruence with your morals and everything else, right? So I think we should strive for it. I think we're built to strive for it. We have a sex drive that keys into like every bit of us. I think sexless marriages or low sex marriages or marriages that haven't unlocked their sexual potential are a travesty. It is devastatingly painful. It is hugely frustrating, and we're not meant to live like that. So I'm very much, I mean, the core part of what I'm doing in my Reforged Marriage program with men is I'm getting them from low sex or dead bedroom situations to able to show up in a thriving way, basically to show sexual leadership, chart a course to sexual awesome town in their marriages. That energizes me. And I think it's actually one of the more important things we can be doing in marriages, because like a lot of a lot of people might say, okay, and here's where you might see some huge alignment with me. Might say, okay, well, sex is one thing, but then there's also, the heart, and there's also so many, it's just one part of life. I see sex and virility and the male sex drive as all encompassing. And if it's something that comes out all over the place, and to get sex right, you kind of have to get everything else right. And to get everything else right, you want to have a thriving sexual relationship. If there isn't some like medical reason or something without it. So I think sex is central. I think it's hugely important. I just don't think framing it in terms of need is the most powerful way that a man can show up, and in fact can often set him back and reduce the amount of sex he gets.
By appearing needy, I think you would
By
say.
what?
By
Well,
appearing needy?
by appearing needy, but that's, in my opinion, that should tell us something. It's not just like, because you don't want to lie to yourself or anyone else, right? If there's a way that's like, okay, there's the way that I really am, but there's also this appearance that I have to put up that isn't congruent with it in order to get the most success, that should like be setting off alarm bells, right? That like, actually what I really want is something totally congruent, where the way I appear and the way I am are in lockstep and are thriving and reinforcing each other, and I'm just living the way I want to live. And my message to men is that we can do that sexually with power and drive and just passion for like sexuality, without shooting ourselves in the foot by having this needy posture, because we're genuinely not needy, we're passionate. So I don't, does that make sense? The importance of congruence, and why, if I'm if I don't, I need to not come across as needy to be sexually successful. I go further. It's like, don't actually be needy.
Sure. I think, yeah, I mean, this this is one of those times I'm like, well, do we see it the same or do we not?
I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, if we could just, yeah, I feel like the easiest way for me to kind of talk about it is like if we were talking about food, right? And if
Right.
I would, me just kind of whining about food and not doing that which brings me food is not really necessarily going to bring me food in abundance, right? Like maybe I get like a scrap, like I'm out there begging for food. Hey, I don't want food, and maybe somebody throws me some scraps. But if I really want to be abundant in food, I need to get out and do that which is going to draw that food or make me, um, have the means to have the food that I want to have. And I just, for me, I kind of think about sex in the same way, which is, if you're doing that, which is driving true desire in your wife, in this example, right? That like sex, you're going to have sex in abundance because the actual, the desire and the thing that draws it to you is there. I like, are we saying the same thing?
Well, I mean, I kind of, so if I'm trying to classify, okay, why do I think seeing sex as a need really throws the guy off? Well, for one thing, if you're looking at sex as something you get from her, where it's like this is his need and it's her thing to give, um, then I think you've lost the plot as far as what can be the most abundant dynamic between the
Sure.
couple.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Um, and I experienced this like in some of the things I've written about, is like front and center. It was a hard thing to learn, because I think in many ways, especially if you got hooked on porn early on, that sort of teaches you this more, I guess, infantile posture towards sex. Mommy, feed me kind of thing. Oh, I'm crying. I'm so hungry. Feed me. Right. That kind of posture towards sex,
Sure.
soothe my feelings of craving. I need to be soothed. And you actually
Mhm.
associate with porn, because it's this magical feel good button. You train yourself to associate your sex drive and sexuality in general as something that soothes you. Whereas it, that posture is actually particularly repulsive to women because that is the same posture that an infant comes to her. So, what an example that I gave, there was a time early on when I was trying to get my marriage on track, and we actually had great sex after a dry spell, and it was wonderful, and I felt great, and I just looked over at it as like, "Oh, honey, thank you so much." And it was interesting because she was just like, it
Yeah.
just,
Repulsed by
eh,
that. Yeah.
there was this ick, and I didn't understand why. And the interesting thing is, over time, as things got better, and I got sort of the right ethos of a man going with her, like, um, honey, I just looking at you right now, I just want to jump on you. So you might want to keep your distance. You probably want to keep your distance. It might be a little much for you. And
Yeah.
she's like, "Oh, what do you got, big boy?" Like that kind of ethos
Yeah.
where you're not like, "Oh, please." You're like, "I've got a lot of desire that I'm putting on the table." And then it got to the point, in the last couple of years where there was one day I came home from work and she was kind of out of sorts. She was just emotionally all over the place. Her mind was all over the place. And I was sitting down talking to her. What's wrong? What do you need? And at a certain point, I was just like, all right, up to the bedroom with you. I know what you need. And I just walked up the stairs and I was surprised. This never would have happened back, 8 years ago. I just kind of glanced over my shoulder. She's following me up the stairs and we had a great time. Came back down. She's all smiles. And it was just like the very fact that my desire, I could just stoke it up, confidently put it out, not a bit worried about her saying no, and just like putting it out there. It was powerful. And so
Yeah.
this is sex as it was my gift to her. My own craving for it, my own desire for it was a gift to her rather than trying to get something from her.
Yeah.
And so that's very important, because it puts her in the frame as a woman who's opening up to receive something from
Yeah.
me, as opposed to a mother who is offering sustenance to me as an infant. Like it's a different direction of the virility and the energy.
So
So
so let me
is that
let
too
me ask
poetic?
you.
It's probably too poetic for you there, but
Yeah, it's too
No.
poetic. No, wait.
Ava's cancer.
Yeah, she understands the poetic talk better than me. No, but let me ask you a question kind of related to that. So like, I have not been shy and I make no bones about saying I objectify my wife. 100%. It's not the only thing I do, right? It's not like there's plenty of stuff that like beyond sexually objectifying her that I enjoy about her, right? But to me, kind of what you're saying is in alignment with that in a way that
Yeah.
it's okay. Like I would say,
Objectify
like
is a tricky word. Let
okay,
me give you one tweet that I just absolutely love and always retweet because it goes it turns people's brain into mush.
sure.
Is a woman tweeted this? She said, it is a joy to be objectified by a man who sees you as a whole person."
Yeah. Okay.
Continue, Rob. Continue.
Yeah. No. But no, I understand that and can understand where that's coming from for sure.
Mhm.
So I guess that's what I was getting at is kind of in alignment, with what you were saying. Like it doesn't sound like you would say that it's bad, and I wouldn't say it was bad. I would say it was actually healthy to objectify your wife to a degree. It is not her only sole purpose in life, and there's many facets to a woman and a wife and that and I think if you're solely objectifying her, you're probably getting into some bad territory. But I think it's a very important part of a healthy sexual connection,
Mm.
right? Because
So
women enjoy to be objectified by someone that they want objectifying.
it's a tricky word. It's a tricky word. I know what you're saying. I think I know exactly what you're saying, and I completely agree with what you're saying, and completely resonate with the point behind it. I mean, people. If I were to define objectification, in terms of this conversation, in the way you mean it, versus a lot of the women online who would say that sexual objectification is the most horrible thing that could ever happen to them. I think you're actually talking about different things, but the sexual objectification, the way I define it here, is to be just frankly, wholeheartedly, no bones about it. I'm being sexual and I'm turning on my drive 100% focused on you. And it's dominant, it's overpowering, it's unapologetic, and it's all aimed at you, and you're mine. Like,
Mhm.
does that get a little bit of the feel?
I think so. What do you look like? You look like you got a look on your face. Like
My cheeks hurt.
it's one of those conversations that
Yeah.
make your cheeks hurt.
Some conversations make my cheeks hurt.
Mm.
Try not to smile.
Yeah.
Well, because I mean, there's so the thing here that's often talked about. It's a little unsavory terminology, but is the what people talk about with the Madonna whore complex, right?
Mm.
It's like I can have this soft, sweet, candlelight, really emotionally close and warm and fuzzy sex with my wife, and then I could just absolutely have this primal, raw, almost animalistic energy if I were having sex with a prostitute, because I just wouldn't care. Like
Sure.
and so the idea, the Madonna whore complex, is this idea that the guys get in their head, they associate this like pornified energy with illicit sexuality, and then this really soft, froofy sexual energy with marriage. And what they're actually doing is they're depriving their wife of like their full masculine sexual energy, because they themselves are split. They have a core split in their soul about it, because they've repressed it. On one hand, they haven't figured out a way, they're scared of it, and they haven't figured out a way to healthily integrate it in a way that they could bring to benefit their marriage. So, from in that sense, yeah, 100%. Now, sexual objectification, where it's where I wouldn't say is good, is when you truly are seeing sex. You're seeing sex as at her expense, like fundamentally at her expense. It's a gain for me, and it's just a loss for you, and I don't care, because all I care about is me, right? Like on a deep level, where you see her as having to lose for you to win, um, and you're willing to use her in that sense. I do see that as negative. But as far as just being unapologetically sexual, no holds barred, I'm not thinking about our anniversary right now, honey. I'm thinking about how you look right here from this angle.
Yeah.
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 Like that has a place. And insofar as in Christian circles or whatnot, we're squeamish about it, I do think that's the role of a man, to integrate that sort of more feral sexual energy in himself, and then introduce his wife to it in a way that she can really rise up to meet him in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I just my own kind of this observation over the years is that men, I'm gonna roll in here this whole problem of the government being involved in marriage from how I see
All
it,
right.
because I think
Let's fix the government. Even Elon couldn't do that, but
right.
we'll
but
try.
I think there is this very real component that men are a little bit, I don't know if timid is the right word I want to use, or fearful, but they're to kind of unleash their whole kind of primalness that is really an important component of marriage, because they worry that if their wife is not receptive to it, she has power granted to her by the state that she can actually hurt you, right? I
Yeah.
mean, she can walk out the door, nobody's stopping her. There are men and women with guns that will be happy to back her right up for her to walk out the door and take half of your stuff if she wants to.
Sure.
And so in kind of comparison to what you're saying about the prostitute, it's like, or these men who have affairs, those sorts of things, like that worry is not necessarily there, right? Because they're like, well, I can treat this woman however I want to treat her, and probably in an unhealthy way, but and I can do it without the risk if I treated my own wife that way. When the reality is, if you treated your own wife that way, your marriage would probably be better, right? And you wouldn't have like, you wouldn't be worried about that concern. So I kind of call this, like, I have this thing, I call it like the fuck it attitude, which is what I think men need to
I
kind
hear
of
that.
adopt,
I
right?
hear that.
Yeah, it's like you got to just be all in on your marriage, right? And I think
Yeah,
by
absolutely.
holding back because you have this concern when it's like, well, man, if I'm too rough with my wife in bed and she doesn't like it,
She'll
like,
divorce me and call me a rapist, right?
right.
You know?
Yeah, exactly right. And so I do think that's a very real thing that a lot of men are dealing with in marriage.
Well, yeah. So what would I say about all that? Because this is very germane to what I do, right? Because I do definitely coach guys who are just like, oh no, that would never fly with my wife,
Yeah,
and they're not wrong. Like as they stand,
as they
right?
currently stand.
Is
Sure.
as they currently stand, if they didn't change anything about themselves and just grab their wife, threw her down on the bed, jumped down her, like whatever, like, yeah, that wouldn't fly. That would, because she's not feeling all the stuff I wrote about in the book, right? Hasn't been feeling enmeshed in your frame. And so this is being seen as a disruptive force from the outside versus a totally like containing force that she's like nestled into, and is wanting to call it up, right? So they're not wrong to get that instinct, and I'm not sure. Well, I'll leave it at that point. It's like, okay, how do you granted that we are where we are, um and you're not going to have the how do you put this? Okay, yeah, she can call the men with guns and accuse you of things before the government. You can also kill her with your bare hands, and she's aware of that, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
you are a
Which some men do. I mean, we see this happen sometimes in divorce, right? I mean, that
yeah,
does happen. That is a real
yeah.
thing.
No, I mean, it's one of those things that we've kind of are we honest about this? Like how much stronger men are than women, how much more aggressive we are, the power that we have. And there's all this talk like with the Me Too movement, trying to recognize actually men are dangerous and actually male sexuality is a fearful, powerful thing. And they're not wrong about that. Right. That's an important thing to rediscover. Tricky part is that the things that women love about male sexuality and desire in it are not completely separable from the things that make us potentially dangerous. In fact, it's our strength. It's our virility and our passion and our fierceness. And like if you dial down one, you would dial down the other. And so what you need is something deeply mature that integrates that strength into a way that can be in the service of the good. And so when you so yes, when guys are in that position where they're like, I have all this sexual longings, I've just let it out in porn and I've quit porn now, but now I'm really sexually frustrated and I don't know if I'll ever be happy, and I know my wife would not welcome this. What do I do? And that's kind of where I step in. So
Yeah.
I can talk about that process because I have lived it. I have seen guys live it. It's a powerful thing. And you're right, there are pitfalls that you don't want to just blunder into, because I mean, no man wants to assault his wife. No man wants
Sure.
to like no man wants to give his wife any sort of experience where she wouldn't look back on it and just be glad she had
Yeah.
that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
No good man, anyway. I'm sure there are some bad people who want to do all
Sure.
sorts
There's
of
some,
bad
yeah. Really
things.
are.
But
Yeah. And that is part, I mean, just in having the honest discussion. I mean, that is part of the
yeah,
honest discussion. And I do, X is at Twitter, whatever you want to call it. It's called X, is what it's called. But it's one of the things I find so agitating about it in reading other people's posts and even the stuff that I post is there's only so much you can say in a soundbite on a post, right? And it's like sometimes the full context is missing, and people hear these things said in a post, and then suddenly they adopt it as an entire worldview based on a paragraph that's got about 50 pages of context on either side of it that would matter, right? But like,
But they're never going to read it.
yeah,
It's like, that's a qualifying. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. So you said something. Let me just kind of bring this topic up.
Okay.
And maybe we'll roll Avis in here a little bit more because I know she'll have some thoughts about this. But it kind of related to the porn topic. So Gia a while back she made a pretty controversial post, and I imagine you saw it because there was, oh my gosh, I don't know, last I looked about 20 million people had seen it and reshared it and everything else. But she said something to the effect of, God gave you 3 holes, you just had a baby, like, you've got 3 holes for a reason. What was that?
You got 2 others?
Right,
Yeah.
right. So, but I understand the context in which that was, but Avis and I had commented something on a post, and it wasn't actually Gia's post. It was a post somebody else made sharing it, and I just had kind of added my own bit and just kind of context to it. And I got a lot of hate for that, and that post kind of went viral, and a lot of people. But one of the things that we kept seeing over and over again, and the people that responded to what I said was, just go tell you just had a baby. Tell your husband if it's that bad, go watch porn and masturbate, right? Like, which Avis and I were like, whoa, and she had some thoughts about that, which was, what if
Yeah, like if I just had a baby and I come out of the room after putting the baby down and he's in front of a computer masturbating to some chick on the screen, I'm like devastated and crushed.
yeah. So is it better to, what's the right thing in that situation? And I would say, I mean, Avis, we've always been in a position where Avis has never ever been sexually denying. Is that the word I want to use? I don't know.
Sure, we'll go with that.
Yeah. But I mean, even after we have 3 kids, right? So there's been some pregnancies and stuff, and we were back at it pretty quick. And I never felt like deprived in any way, if we want to say it that way, right? Or that too much time was passing. But I know that's not the experience of a lot of men. So I would just kind of be curious to hear your thoughts, and I know you're probably going to say something, well, the man's doing a poor job of pulling the woman into his frame, so forth. But what, I mean, you've got these guys and now it's been 3 months, 6 months, whatever, and their wives still aren't having sex with them because they just had a baby. And now that we're like, what is this guy supposed to do? And I'm sure you see it as much as I do. We'll see, this, kind of some of these red pill influencers saying porn has saved more marriages than it's harmed. These are the kind of scenarios I'm thinking about that they're thinking about when you hear that. So I just kind of be curious to hear your thoughts on that whole dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. So the foundational piece for me, in this whole process, like where I started the whole conversation at the beginning, was when we, as 2017, or I confronted the fact a long-standing porn addiction I'd had for 25 years at that point, ever since puberty, off and on. And I actually found Mark Queppet had a program at the time, and he was involved in the NoFap movement, and at the time, and I had only had Christian, I'd only been exposed to Christian approaches to this. And Mark, though he was actually coming back to his faith after a hiatus, he was approaching it from a very scientific and pragmatic perspective. And that whole secular porn recovery movement was doing that, which was all new to me. Anyway, what that all involved, and this was life-changing. This I genuinely see it as a rite of passage into modern manhood. is quitting porn. And it's not just quitting porn. The right way to put it is actually gaining sexual self-mastery. So it's like, if your sexuality is this, unbroken stallion, turning it into a reliable horse that you can ride and steer. And so that process in quitting porn can be a gateway into that skill. And so it's gaining this masculine virtue called sexual self-mastery. And what I had to do that was, this is porn addict, masturbating every day, every other day, to all these things. The gold standard, what they recommend, and what I did, was a 90-day sexual fast. No porn, no masturbation, no sex with my wife. 0. And I went through that, and I'd never done that, like, not since puberty. I never had a period where I totally went without. And what I gained from that was tremendous. It didn't make me sexually repressed, because the whole process that Mark led me through was like, how do you see the connection between, your sexual energy, just being sexually like riled up, and then with that energy still charging into your system. Gosh, the garage is an absolute mess. I'm gonna go tackle it, right? Like, and you've got all this drive, and you got all this energy. You're horny as all get out, and you go to war with the garage, and you come back and it's all clean. And you genuinely feel in that situation, once you're all out of breath and have done it, you feel sexually satiated. And it's the way that the male drive is meant to work. It's meant to be able to be channeled toward these status pursuits. And it's kind of this outflanking maneuver, because it's meant to be channeled towards the same status pursuits that then end up triggering sexual arousal and attraction in women. So you go, I mean, like, the guy classically, you think of example, I used it in the book, right? The guy who's like, in our hunter-gatherer ancestors or whatever, he's going out, he's this kid, he's 13 years old, and he sees these pretty young ladies in the tribe, and he just wants to go at them, and they're not interested in him, and he better not touch them, right? And so he's got all this sexual energy, and he doesn't know what to do with it. And then one of the guys like, hey, come on the hunt with us. And he's got all this pent up sexual energy, doesn't know what to do with it, but he overcomes his courage, his like inhibitions, and he revs up some courage, and he takes down his first kill. And now he has the kill slung over his back, and he's all like proud and everything, and walking in, and he's not sexually aroused at that moment. He's not necessarily feeling that. He's feeling just relaxed. And then he walks back into the tribe, and then all these ladies are like, young ladies are turning their head. Hey, I don't recognize, who's he again? I don't know that I've seen him before. And so that process, and that's what that sort of those 90 days in quitting porn built in me, the ability to like steer my sexual drive and say, okay, if she's ready for it, it's going to go all in on her. And if there's another task I can just fire myself up in, it's going to go all in there. And that gives it, and that turns it from, you get back to that need drive distinction, that turns it from a need, I absolutely have to have it in this way right now or I'm not okay, to I'm overflowing with passion. Where am I going to direct it? So that's how, because that's a foundational part of my story. It's something that I strongly recommend men build, is this ability to have sexual self-mastery, to be able to channel their sexual energy in other areas. That's huge, ends up being hugely attractive to women. And then it's just a positive feedback loop after that.
Yeah. Makes sense. I don't know if we talked about the specifics of what a man should do in that situation, but I get the gist of what you're saying. But like in that case, like going and like cleaning the garage, like that's not going to fix the immediate, like the wife isn't having sex with them for 6 months because she just had a baby.
Yeah. And there's a lot of ways that you can approach that situation. And you probably do need to take a multifaceted approach. Like, I think, first of all, just the overall ethos where you go at it isn't one of, I need this, I'm feeling deprived, can you give me something that I'm deprived by? That puts you in the same category as the crying infant who's literally sucking sucking on her boobs, right? Like, and
Right. I got
it's like,
one
well, I
baby in the
want to
room.
suck on the
Another.
other
Yeah.
one, like,
Yeah.
you don't want that energy. You want kind of the opposite. And so if there is a dearth of sexual energy, you want to approach it from a posture of leadership. Like, honey, my sense is that our marriage is not being nurtured the way it needs to. We are not able to connect. We've been not able to connect sexually as man and wife. And I hate for our marriage to be set back because of that. I think this would be good for us. I think you want it. I want it. And if your body isn't able to be there right now, what can we do sort of adjacent to this so that we can really connect in a way that still honors the fact that you're recovering? Like that kind of ethos, that confident, shepherding sort of captain ethos,
Yeah.
rather than gimme.
I love that. I think that's great. And I very much, I mean, we say that all the time. And it's like, we kind of refer that as you got to have the hard conversation, right? Like you gotta go in, you gotta, like, maybe it's an uncomfortable conversation to have, but you got to have it. And that's part of demonstrating leadership,
Yeah.
right?
Once
And
again, I think Giff's words were a little more poetic than
Yeah.
how you and I would
he's way
communicate.
more poetic. Yeah.
Yeah. We're a little more blunt there, but yeah, same idea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you do want to be direct. And you do want to own your desires front and center. Just you want to plant the flag. I do think you're going to be a much stronger position as a husband if you have the skill to be able to say, I know I can wait however long it takes. I was single at one point, channeling my sex drive into all these things, into working out, into raising my status, into, driving down the road just with that fire to it as I'm doing it. Like a million different things I do, I show up with a sexually charged ethos, and I'm comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
But I don't want to see our marriage just like go for 6 months without us connecting sexually. Our marriage deserves this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Avis, she likes to point out too that, women to be kind of sexual, they need to feel good about themselves also.
Yeah.
And if they're not feeling, and that is part of that whole thing, especially with pregnancy and all that, like maybe she's not feeling quite herself. And
Right.
and I'm a big proponent of, like, I think you need to kind of help lead your wife there where she needs to be in terms of, like, hey, maybe you can take the baby and say, hey, it's really important to me that you feel good about yourself and that I enjoy how you look. And you need some time to go to the gym. Let me take the baby so you can go to the gym, or, whatever it is. Right. And kind of creating that environment for her.
Don't worry, I'm getting my curls in too.
Right. Exactly.
Baby press.
Yeah.
I thought the chapter on leadership in the book was really well done, and
it was like that a lot.
I identified with that a lot. And I think one of the things you nailed was women don't like questions, right? Like in a sense of leadership, right? And so I think, like you said, you coming to your wife and being like, hey, I don't want this to be a problem for us. How do we fix that? What can I do for you? Like, even though that's a question, you're taking the leadership, and, like, she didn't have to come to you with the question or the need. You're just kind of going at it and addressing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, even in that sense, it's even better to, like, I'm curious what you think. And then you paint the path. I'm going to do this. Is this something you want to join me on? Right.
Yeah.
Like that kind of ethos just, it works better.
Yeah. I mean,
And
absolutely.
it's not the way we're taught, though, like explicitly. That's what sets so many men back, is that they're not taught leadership. They're not taught like how to lead as men with a masculine ethos with women, just about anywhere. That's one of the things one of the many things in the book that the guys are like, oh, why didn't anyone teach me this in high school?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there is a big, I mean, I know for myself, there definitely was. I mean, I did not have a good father situation, and Avis and I, we went to high school prom together. I mean, it's how long we've been together. Right. So like, I know I did not come into marriage, knowing really anything how to be married, right? Everything I had for marriage was pretty poor example. And, there was a lot of figuring stuff out as we went, right? Which we did, obviously. I mean, we're still here many, many decades later. But I think there is a real need, that like, I mean, I don't know, if somebody handed me a book like this when I was trying to figure all that out, it might have been very helpful. Right. So
I hope so.
I think it's good.
I mean, I think I see it when people get it. I kind of like, actually, how like when a young man who's like ready for it actually gets it in his hands, he's like, wow.
Yeah.
Whereas, an adult sometimes, I don't know what to make of this book. Like, but yeah, the problem is that it's really, my intended audience is more like high school and college, but like the people who are more likely to buy the book for them are higher up. But then again, those are the guys that I'm leading in the marriage course. So there we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Avis, you had I don't want to keep Giff a whole lot longer, but you had some things I think you wanted to ask in your 1,000 pages. I'd say what, 7,500 now it's 1,000, but
not that many. We've covered a fair amount.
Okay.
And what I found interesting, obviously, some of the early chapters, I'm not a man, and so I would say to Rob, "Did this really happen when you were in puberty?" I had a lot of questions for him. But yeah, and also, I wasn't
answer?
raised in the church. I'm sorry, what?
What was Rob's answer when you asked him that? Did he confirm or did not? Did he corroborate what I was saying?
Basically, yes. Basically, yes. Hold on, he put me on the spot. I wasn't ready with anything. Ask another question.
Well, yeah, I think you started to talk about you weren't raised in the church.
Oh, right. I wasn't raised in the church, so a lot of it, like, I'm like, is that really like what they talk about to young boys?
Yeah.
Like, masturbation is a sin?
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's definitely a message you get. Certainly lust is a sin, and they're not often given like a real framework to understand the distinction between the sin of lust and just sexual energy and desire, when you're at an age where yeah, like where you're feeling all this for the first time, and it's to try to make sense of that. You end up, what happens de facto quite a lot is you end up associating just your sexual energy itself with vice. And then that's straight path into the aforementioned Madonna whore complex.
Yeah. There's a lot of, I mean, that's another whole topic, but just, one of my pet peeves, I don't know if I want to call it that, but irritations is there's just a lot of shame, view and pushing in church, which I know a lot of like very well-meaning people. Avis and I used to, well, she didn't have any exposure to church before she met me. I grew up, my mom, even though we had a lot of family dynamics and marriage and divorce, and my dad was married like 5 times, my mom 3 times, like kind of give you just some insight into, how all that went. But my mom, one thing I did have consistently is my mom was always kind of in church, and we were Mormon, we were Jehovah's Witness. She was Catholic before she had me.
Well, you got quite the tour, the world tour.
Yeah. we eventually ended up in just kind of like a non-denominational church, and kind of when Avis came into my life, and that's what we were doing. And, I kind of took her into all that. We don't go to church at the mall anymore. And I don't want to confuse people with saying like, we're not like love God, absolutely. Um, Nothing. I think being Christian and the Christian beliefs and all that, like 100% on board with all that stuff. But there's a lot of irritation with a lot of what you see going on in the churches. And this is kind of one of those things where it's just, there's, I don't think we're being as real as we can be in the churches,
Yeah, absolutely. And it may be a source of, maybe interesting. I think I'm a little surprised, maybe, if I could, the direction I've gone, in that I've actually arrived at a place. You're talking about masturbation, and that for grown men, I'm really saying nothing about no other category of person, but for grown men, I'm pretty masturbation negative. I'm pretty like, because if you're ever in that position where you're kind of approaching your sexual energy in that way, I mean, it's if nothing, it's symbolic of like, okay, your strength going down the toilet, right? Like, it's like, how is there, and that's a symbol of what are you doing with your virility? Is there something you can channel it into, or are you approaching sexuality as something that doesn't do anything, and it's just like siphoning off the energy so that you're not bothered by it, right? And so I've come to a fairly masturbation negative mindset because of that, but not because it's like, oh, this is so horrible and you should feel so ashamed, but more of because of where I want to spur men to go. And but I'm very much against any sort of shame around that with teen boys, right? Where they're first being confronted with it, so that they associate like sexuality and sexual desire and all of that as something to be ashamed of, something weird and awkward that they then have to hide, that then creates this like split mind within them. I do see that as very harmful, but I see moving towards what I call sexual self-mastery is ideally in the life of a young man, a move towards like full manhood around their sexuality.
Yeah.
But anyway, that may be a topic we don't want to necessarily spend a lot of time on.
No, that's fine. No,
that was actually one of my questions. What your advice to a younger man would be in that scenario. So I think you answered that.
Yeah, it's just to see it as childish, to see it as approaching sexuality in a more, I am an infant sucking on the breast kind of way, which as a kid, you're closer to, right? Mm-hmm. You're closer to, and adolescence is growing out of that. I'm standing on my own 2 feet, and I'm the one providing things. I'm the one who's got a lot to give.
Yeah.
And to see sexuality more around that ethos, and it feels good to give it. So, to guide young men in building that is what I would want to do.
I do have one more maybe kind of touchy topic I want to ask you, but before we get off of this topic completely, I just want to ask you one other quick thing. So what would you say, to an older man, right? Because you're saying like you're not big on masturbation in adult men. But the reality is, I mean, there are adult men out there that don't have females in their lives, or maybe they were previously married and now they're divorced, and like this whole thing. Like, I mean, what would you say to a man who, I think you would agree, like sex is very important, but they don't have a woman in life. They don't have somebody to kind of like how, from a very practical, like, what would you say they should be doing?
I would say, first of all, I don't know. There are old women too. Like single old men, single old women. Like, if you feel a calling or destiny or intense desire to pursue, to long for that, I would never tell someone not to pursue it, and to not do the things with your sexual energy that increase life is a betting man's game, right? But increase your probability of getting what you want. So that the virility that an old man still feels, hopefully with various like status that he's built, a frame that he's built with his life, what he has of that over the years. I think he should channel his sex drive toward pushing that forward. Now there's a kind of ethos, right, where it's like, well, there's not much left of your life. You might as well just enjoy what you have. And I think, I don't know, man, maybe I'm too idealistic, but I'm just like, nah, man, it's like, we will not go gentle into that good night, right? While you have breath, go for it. Like,
Yeah.
and whatever that is, and whatever that calling is, whatever your thing is that you've built passion around, pursue it, build it. And don't be the kind of, you don't just jerk it all away. Like that's
Yeah.
kind of the ethos. And you're like, well, these are two different things, but is it really? Like, is it?
I get you. I hear you.
Yeah.
Go after the woman when you're old, Rob. That's what he's saying.
Go after the woman when I'm old.
Yeah.
Okay. Avis did actually have sorry, I'm gonna like drag this out for 3 hours. But Avis, there was something in the book that we talked about where you were talking about, men. I'm paraphrasing here, so you correct me with kind of what you exactly said. But that men never really lose their desire for other women.
Oh yeah, around the Coolidge effect.
Oh yes. Yeah, that is a truth that can make us squirm a little.
Let's get into that.
Okay. So we should probably say for our viewers, if you don't know what the Coolidge effect is, it's a delightful story. Sometimes you have like scientific sociological terms named after great stories. And apparently Calvin Coolidge was visiting a chicken farm, President Calvin Coolidge, with the First Lady. And I don't know if they were right next to each other or whether they were separate, and they found out later. But basically they were watching a rooster mounting all these hens. And the First Lady said, so how many hens does he mate with in a day? And the attendant said, oh, upwards of 30, there's, and she says, ooh, tell that to the president. And then the Calvin Coolidge then said, now let me just clarify a thing. When the rooster that mounts 30, is it the same hen? Oh no, Mr. President, a different hen every time. Tell that to the First Lady. Yeah. And there's this kind of like nervous laugh of recognition, right? Where you say, well, gosh, if I'm a virtuous man, if I'm a man committed to marriage, I'm committed to the ideal of what God has made in the world. I mean, we know then obviously one woman should be enough for me, because that's what God has designed us for. He's designed us for marriage, for the two to become one. And yet there's this nervous laugh of recognition that our sexual firmware has that like insatiable, like sexual appetite for novel things from a sheer, like, this is the way to propagate the most genes. And it doesn't know. It's just saying, be fruitful and multiply, mating opportunity, go for it. Because of the way male sexuality works, where we don't have the burden of pregnancy. And so our body's firmware just sees that, no, this is a good thing. Any opportunity we ought to take to maximize reproduction. And they've actually done experiments with rats, these things that these researchers do, where you take a male rat, put him in a cage, and then you take a female rat in season, put her in, and he's like, jumps on her, and he'll mate with her, and then he'll mate with her again, and then a little bit of time will pass, and he'll mate with her again, but the amount of time will increase each time to eventually where he won't mate with her all that often. And then they take a new female, put her in, and boom, immediately he wants the new female to just really make sure that goes. And they've experimented with this. Lucky rat, I guess. They keep putting new female rats in season in this, and they found that the male rat will never lose interest. He will mate himself into exhaustion and unconsciousness before he says, nah, I'm not interested. Right.
Yeah.
And it's funny because a lot of guys can look at that and say, yeah, I recognize that. That same just insatiable appetite is in me.
Yeah.
And
So
so,
we talked about that.
yeah.
I was like, is this a true fact? Like, you go to the pool, you see the women, and you're like, oh, I want to mate with her and her and her. Like, so you're saying this still exists today?
Absolutely.
I'm
Absolutely.
looking at both of you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a thing. The way I phrase it to Avis is, I mean, I think you notice attractive women. It's just the fact of life, right? And it's like,
Yeah, I mean, we talk about attractive women. Like, if we,
Avis is like, I mean, she'll be scrolling her Instagram sometime, and she's like, oh, check that chick out.
yeah,
Right? I mean, it's like,
well, there's
so
no
but
thing.
never in my mind were you like, oh, I need to mate with her, and she needs to have my offspring.
It's at the firmware level. Okay, this is not necessarily consciousness. It's presented to our consciousness as kind of sensory, just reality. Where, and this is where we men are a little different than women, because we got like a part of us that like gets hard and points to the thing it wants to mate with, right? Like we actually have a physical part of our anatomy that's like, and it may even be inconvenient, right? Like it's like,
especially when you're a young man. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because, and that is the reality. And I think the way that I engage with that as a Christian is that obviously we've got this low level firmware that's kind of dumb as far as like higher order thinking, but it's our instinct that is put into us by God in nature that says, I want to be fruitful and multiply. I want to be as fruitful as I possibly can. And yet we know in the reality that we've got a lot of instincts like that. I don't want to starve. I want to eat,
Right.
or I will die, and if I have the opportunity to eat a lot, I should eat it all so that I can store it as fats in case there's a time where I'm not going to eat, right? We've got all of these low level impulses. And if we just like say, okay, sure, no wisdom, no higher order guidance, just do what you feel like, we know where that leads.
Yeah.
We know that wrecks us.
Yeah.
Not because the impulses aren't good, but because to just blindly follow them without wisdom is not good. It will lead us to ruin, even as it ultimately is a good desire. So that is true and the way I resolve that is the concept of sexual transmutation, is the idea where you look down and you're like, all right, buddy, I like the spirit. Tell you what we're going to do with that, because we're actually all good. We're actually being as fruitful and multiplying as we can, congruent with what we care about. So I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to just jump all that higher off that diving board. That's what we're going to do. Let's do it. And so you take that energy and you get used to that. You get used to just saying, a little bit of free energy, a little bit of free fire. Thanks, man. And you don't say, it's like, oh, stop it. That's wrong. Stop it. It's like with a dog that's chewing at you, right? You're no bite. Here's a chew toy that you can bite. That's what we do to that, like that more animalistic part of us. We're shepherding it and leading it in the path of wisdom.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, what you're saying, and then there's kind of like the other avenue that some of these guys that, again, I don't necessarily agree with, but the whole polygamy thing, right?
Yeah, polygamy is great. Yes, yeah, so we can have every man can have 100 wives. What's the problem with that?
Yeah, well,
what
it's not
could
100
possibly
wives
be the logistical bottleneck?
Yeah, that to me, it's like I know, and I admittedly, like, I don't think I could. These guys that are convinced that polygamy is God's will and all this, and like I don't know that I have a really great biblical argument. I mean, I think they make some good points, but to me, just from a practical point of view, if God intended us to have 5 wives or whatever, then like, wouldn't we have more availability of females kind of that ratio.
Right.
Like
We would
which I
have
don't
we
see,
would
which
and the answer is, even in anything closely um polygamy normative, any sort of society like that, the answer is the men brutally murder each other at scale. And
mm,
that's very Darwinian, sure, and that's how that
yeah,
happens. It's certainly like, but the reality is, for all of civilized history, and civilized including all sorts of horribly barbarous things we do to each other, and war and everything else, slavery, all that, still, in civilized history, polygamous societies, we're talking the mayor of the town has a second wife. We're
sure.
talking the
Y-
chief may have four. We're talking the king may have a dozen, right? It's not, the numbers still is roughly 50-50, and 99.9% of the people are still monogamous.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this idea of like, oh no, the solution to the idea that men have this polygamous impulse is every man having multiple wives. Well, it's never been like that.
Yeah, there's a documentary on I think Netflix or something, and it's called "Keep Sweet and Obey." I don't know if you've seen it or not. It's about the uh, what's that guy's name?
Warren Jeffs.
Warren Jeffs. If you see that the FDLS. Uh, um, anyways, there was a whole, just kind of to the point you were making. There's a whole community of, they called them the Lost Boys, where they were sending the males out of the group, and they were sending them off to work and send money back, but they were sending the males out to reduce the male population so that the leaders had more women to marry. Kind of.
Yeah, there's some question. Yeah, like some of the early Mormon stuff, right, where they'd go on raids, right, and kill the men and bring back the women.
Yeah,
That has been a thing historically. Yeah, we conquer the place, kill all the men, take the women, then guys can have more wives. Great. Um, and so there is a cost to these things, and I do. I'll tell you my take as far as if I'm operating at the level of these guys who are like, oh, the problem is that we don't have polygamy, so that's why I'm not sexually satisfied with just one wife, and I should have two so that I can have an outlet to all my sexual passion. My reply is, if you're the sort of guy who isn't able to spur responsive sexual desire in your wife, who doesn't have that skill of using his virility to do that, in the polygamous society, you would not be the chief who has multiple wives. You'd
yeah,
be the slave who got kicked to the dust, who didn't have any.
yeah.
So there's something to him who has more will be given, to him who has not
Yes.
more will be taken away. That's sort of the cruel logic of raw primal sexuality. There's not a lot of grace, just right in the firmware.
Yeah.
And so I don't think, basically, I don't think if those guys got what they wanted, they'd get what they wanted.
Yeah.
So that's
Interesting.
my dismissive take.
Very interesting.
All right, Giff. I'm gonna ask you one more question, and we'll time box it. Like, let's try to keep it 5 minutes or less, because I don't want to keep you all night.
Sure, man.
It's getting late where you're at. Just one of my observations about you, and this is just what I know of you on X, right? This is actually the first time we've talked, so like there's lots I don't know about you. We don't have like a personal relationship, and so I don't want to misrepresent. But you seem not very willing to really hold women to any sort of that they have any responsibility. And maybe I'm misreading it, and that's why I'm asking you. Like, what would you say? I've seen you specifically say that you're on Team Woman on this one. I've seen you say that a few times, like, which I think is okay. I mean, I think us men need to own the things that we need to own, but I also would say there are some things that women need to own. And I just want to ask you, like, is that really how you feel, or do I have a am I misunderstanding you? Or do you think that there are things that women kind of need to, just as men have to take responsibility for, that women also have to take responsibility for? Or do you think they're solely, at the reliant
At
on
the
the men to lead
mercy.
them? And if their
Yeah,
men
no.
aren't leading them well and the women are not doing what they should
And
be
they're
doing,
hers.
it's on the man.
Right. Do women have any agency? All that stuff.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, gosh, let me try to say it succinctly. As male and female human beings share a human nature, right? And within that shared human nature, there's all sorts of moral responsibility and accountability that needs to be had and everything. It's like, you don't lie to people. You don't murder people. You try to make yourself the best person you can. You try to brush your teeth. You like all sorts of things that you should hold yourself accountable for, and that we say, if you're not doing that, we kind of judge it, right? So, yes, of course, women have agency, right? Now, there is an aspect in marriage and in a sexual relationship between a man and a woman that has this heaven and earth relationship. So, where he has to initiate and she has to respond. And it's in that particular aspect where the femininity needs the masculinity in order to like create the frame where it has an avenue of response to which she can choose to then respond badly. But if he hasn't done the first step, then she doesn't have the responsive step open to her. And that's the part where I'm very sympathetic to the women, where they're like, no, 50-50. You do your half, he does his half, you do your half. That there's a lot of her stuff where his stuff is the prerequisite. His stuff is the foundation. He's the frame. She's the picture. He's the shell. She's the pearl. Like and so the order in scripture, right, is sing ye heavens and earth, reply. The rain comes down from the sky. Here's me being poetic again. The rain comes down. Then the earth responds with fruit. Semen goes in, baby comes out. Like that's kind of how it works. Physically, it's how it works. Emotionally, it's how it works. And so I'm very defensive on behalf of the women when they are not given what they need to do what they need to do.
Yes.
So that's the part where I'm very much no. The guys have to go first, and then the women have to respond.
In my non-poetic way of saying it, I would say you have to make room for her and set her up for success. Yeah. And then she has to move into that. Yeah.
Right. And so here's the thing: accountability. Well, you're not holding the women accountable. Here's kind of my answer to that, and it may be a cop out. I like it. And that's that it's not that I'm not holding women accountable. I want to teach men to hold their own woman accountable. I want her accountable to him, not because some guy on the internet or a bunch of peer pressure told her that she needs to be accountable to him. I want to show him how to lead and show up so that he has standards. He is a standard that everything in her wells up and tries to respond to and rise to. So in your marriage, right, if she is being awful, if there's shit testing you, doing all sorts of stuff all the time, just turning up the volume, I want to teach men how to discipline that. Not in this like, you broke the rule kind of way, but in the way that she's experiencing, oh gosh, I am like out of sync with his frame and I am missing out. This sucks. So that's what I tell the guys. Wait, why don't you go hold her accountable? And it's like, whose wife is she? You hold her accountable, and I'll teach you how.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's good. Yeah,
I like
think
that answer.
Yeah, I think I do too. Yeah, I'd say we were a lot of alignment on that. I think it just haven't. Again, this is one of those things we talked about earlier. It's like it's hard to gather the full context of what somebody is saying in a tweet.
Right.
Yeah. So that's helpful. Thank you.
My question would be, when does the counterpart book come for the women?
Is your wife going to write it?
That is a hard question, because it's my vision of male female intersexual dynamics is so asymmetric, right?
Sure.
It's not like this and this. I don't really know how to write a book for women, because their path is so different. One of the things about masculinity is that you kind of have to choose to go through the rite of passage, so to speak, into manhood. Women, it happens to them it's like ready or not, here it comes. And and they're even in these core things, starting to have their cycle, arousal during sex is responsive. The whole labor and delivery process, it happens. And as far as what their conscious mind does, it's more discipline around truly opening up and surrendering and like thriving in the midst of that. It's very active passivity, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah.
But that's what their path looks like. And so for me, I don't necessarily know how to guide them at that path. On the other hand, a lot of women like my book, and it really.
Oh, I see the women. I mean, they eat up the stuff
Yeah,
that you post on X. Yeah, they love it. Yeah.
So I don't know what to do with all that. I don't know what the next book I've got in my head. Two potential books. I could see myself writing a book alongside Mark Kweppet on quitting porn and sexual self-mastery, basically taking chapter 5 and really expanding it. And then the other thing is this book for married men, much more sexually, explicit, much more focused on that context.
Yeah.
I could see that right now. I'm enjoying not writing a book for a little bit.
Yeah. Well, if you need a consult from a couple that loves to have sex, let us know. We'll be glad
that's
hear your
great.
thoughts on it.
I love to get love to compare notes. It's interesting. I've definitely got that with Chad Collins, who's helping me with Reforged Marriage. I don't know if you saw my conversation with him.
I have not seen that one. No.
Oh my goodness! He has.
Recent?
It was a little while back, but I also did one where I did like a long form written post about I called it The Death of Unconditional Love. So I traced his story of this sort of blue pilled, found out his wife was, I don't know if it's right to say cheating on him, but having at least an emotional affair with someone else and it destroying his world, to learning what it meant to level himself up in a way that like pulled her back into his orbit and all the things he experienced. And anyway, he's extremely active in the community for giving very practical advice. So I'm very open to that. And I love hearing.
Is he on X? I'll have to give this account a follow.
Yeah, he's not super active on it, but I can definitely, he definitely shows up and does the odd comment there.
Okay.
But I can definitely, after the call, I'll send you a few links with his stuff.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Yeah.
But no, I didn't mean to. Yes, absolutely. Love to reach out and compare notes. I will be doing that a lot if I do end up writing, the married man's version of this book.
Yeah.
That's still, I think, is very useful to married men.
I would read it.
Yeah. It wouldn't. There's not a damn thing it could teach me, but hey.
That's probably true. I never say never. Never say never.
Anyway, well, Giff, thank you so much for your time and a delightful conversation. It's really, really good. Enjoyed it. And for the people who are listening to this, watching it, whatever, he's got the book. It's out there. It's on Amazon. He says $20, right?
Yeah, and absolutely. And if there are any guys who are struggling with low sex marriage, reach out to me on X. I lead cohorts of men through something just amazingly transformative. And it's just, I say I'm a redemption junkie. I just love to see like despair turn into hope and, lack turn into abundance and all that.
Yeah.
God is good.
Yeah. I get that about you. You seem like a very genuine guy, and I always appreciate genuine people. So good stuff. All right. Well, Giff, thank you again so much for your time. And maybe some other time when you're ready to write your marriage book, we'll get together and we'll talk explicitly about
Absolutely. Pick a topic. I'll be there.
All right, cool. Thanks a lot. We appreciate you.